Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Validity Podcast. I'm your host, Valentina Rodriguez, and today is pretty much just like a little check-in episode because last week, for the first time ever, I did not drop an episode on Friday. That's the first week that we've gone without a new episode since launching and dropping this entire podcast. And full transparency, it is because I am in the thick of it with prep, with the reverse diet study, and with all the final projects for my last summer grad course. So I have actually my full final project due tonight, but I had a little window of time because all that I have left really is to look over it one more time before I submit it. It's about 16 pages long right now, and I still have to input some pictures of my handwritten notes because that's part of the requirements for the assignment. But I won't bore you with the details of my final projects, but that's a little bit of what's been going on and why I've been a little bit absent. And also, full transparency, as you guys know, my goal with this podcast is to directly mirror what I learn through my Masters of Exercise Science program at USF. And a lot of the pertinent topics that I learned in my first year, we've already covered in most of the episodes. I've been kind of coursing through all my notes, and there's not a ton left that I think would be interesting or applicable to you guys that isn't just like random textbook physiology. That would be very boring and also very hard to teach via a podcast. So today, really, what I'm doing is just kind of checking in, letting you guys know where we're at in terms of the next few weeks, what to expect with podcast episodes, some personal updates, and then we're going to cover a little bit of cardio for fat loss, mostly just an overview of some FAQs that I get regarding cardio and fat loss. So, personal updates. I have one more competition on my radar for my season. I did win the overall at my second show on July 6th. So I did win the overall at the NPC Orlando Championships. That was one of the best feelings ever. My show day vlog should be live very soon on my YouTube, but my peak week vlog is already out. So that was 2 and 3 days out from my overall win. I do recommend going to watch that and just keeping up on my Instagram if you guys are interested in prep updates. When it comes to research updates, we are doing another round of pushing for recruitment for the reverse diet study. So if you are interested in participating in the world's first reverse dieting study, it will entail you undergoing a maintenance phase, a dieting phase, and then a post-dieting phase. Then please email reversedietstudy@gmail.com. And then also be patient as you await for your response because we have a very high volume of inquiries. Like I think we've gotten over probably 800 now inquiries for the study. So yes, definitely some patience might be needed as soon as you reach out, but you should hear back within a few days. There's just a lot of moving parts. I've explained this in previous episodes, a lot of moving parts when it comes to the onboarding process, taking somebody from showing interest in the study to getting them fully onboarded. There's a lot of steps that, we got to undergo. So that's kind of where I'm at with personal updates. Like I said, I have one more show on my radar for my competition season. I finished my last summer grad course today as soon as I submit my final project. And then I will have about a month of freedom, if you will. Ideally, about a month off of school. No more summer classes after today until we start the fall semester up again. And then I'll also have a couple weeks of summer off of prep as soon as I finish my last show of the season. So I'm excited, but also I'm curious as to how these podcast episodes are going to go because I either have to outsource topics, get them from you guys as you guys ask me questions. So if you guys have topics you want me to cover, please email me, DM me, let me know so that I can cover those in episodes, especially as we have a little bit of downtime between now and the fall semester. Next week, there will not be a new episode because it will be my first week off of school. I will be traveling. There will just be a lot going on. And like I said, I'm kind of at a loss of topics when it comes to at least pulling directly from my graduate program. I've really covered almost everything that I think could be pertinent to you guys that we've covered in the program. But I keep going through my notes. So if something comes up, I'll definitely film a podcast episode. But we will still have a couple more. I just think it's going to be almost like all the episodes up until now were season 1, if you will, because they covered my first full year of grad school. And then once fall semester starts up again and I get new content and I learn new content and I just learn more stuff about exercise science, about anything that I think you guys would be interested in, then I can directly communicate that to you guys. So we do still have a couple of potential guest people that will be coming on the podcast. So we still have room for more episodes, but you guys were asking where the Friday episode was, and I felt so guilty. I'm not even going to lie to you. So today I'm really just going to kind of go through cardio and how it works for fat loss and how I personally prescribe it. We're not going through a specific study. We're not doing any of that. I just kind of want to explain how it works when it comes to your body utilizing different fuel sources as you're doing cardio. So a lot of times people think that more cardio, at least when it comes to more intensity, is inherently better because you burn more calories. And that's not necessarily the case. So depending on the intensity range that you're doing your cardio, your body will utilize different fuel sources to fuel the exercise that you're doing based on the intensity range. So lower intensity cardio sessions burn less overall calories because they're less intense, they require less energy, but the fuel that is directly providing energy for lower intensity cardio is largely circulating free fatty acids. As you increase intensity of your cardio session, you actually increase the percentage of energy that's being derived from either circulating glucose or muscle and or liver glycogen. Liver glycogen becomes circulating glucose, but muscle glycogen gets broken down directly and can provide energy more locally, if you will. And higher intensity cardio, if I do 30 minutes of cardio and I'm standardizing the total amount of time that I'm doing, if I do 30 minutes of low intensity cardio versus 30 minutes of high intensity cardio, I'm going to burn more total calories doing the 30 minutes of high intensity cardio. But the percentage of calories that are coming from circulating fatty acids will be greater in the low intensity cardio. So for me, my recommendation for fat loss is always going to be to do lower intensity cardio, but that might mean that you have to do more of it. And to me, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make because I personally don't want to tap into my muscle glycogen when I'm doing cardio. I want to save my muscle glycogen for lifting. I want to save my muscle glycogen for training. I want to save my circulating glucose for training. I think that you should be sparing your muscle glycogen, your glucose. You should be sparing that for your resistance training as much as possible. And you should not be overly fatiguing yourself with your cardio protocols. Your cardio should be simply to increase your deficit. And therefore, cardio should be lower intensity and higher duration in order to maximize the percentage of energy that's being derived from circulating fatty acids. Because circulating fatty acids, as we've talked about in past episodes, those come from breaking down triglycerides that are stored in your adipocytes, which are your fat cells. We've talked about how burning fat and losing fat is a two-part process. First, you break down the fat cell, which contains triglycerides. Those get broken down into 3 fatty acid chains and a glycerol backbone. That entire process is called lipolysis. Those fatty acids then circulate until they get delivered to the working tissues, then undergo beta oxidation and then be used in the electron transport chain and eventually create ATP. And then that's where they're burned for energy. Beta oxidation is really what the quote unquote burning of the fats are. And you maximize the amount of fatty acid fuel contribution to your exercise in lower intensity ranges. And that intensity range, honestly, is up to about 65% of your VO2 max, 70% of your VO2 max. So for me, my rough estimate of a heart rate range that I like to stay in for cardio is above 130 and below like 155 beats per minute. Again, this is a range because it's going to be relative to everybody, and intensity ranges are relative to everybody, and VO2 max ranges don't correlate 100%. They don't track 100% with heart rate, but it is close enough to where you can use heart rate ranges as a proxy for intensity for sure. So my recommendation is always going to be to do your cardio in lower intensity ranges. I personally do incline walking and I keep my heart rate above 130, below 155, and I do however much I'm prescribed. But just in general, make sure that your cardio is being done in a way that doesn't compromise your lifting. And for me, that means not doing crazy high intensity cardio that fatigues me and then requires additional recovery. I want all my recovery essentially to be for my resistance training. I also want to spare my muscle glycogen and spare my circulating glucose. And that means I want to keep my cardio on the lower intensity side of things. The other consideration when it comes to cardio is when you do it. So you never want to do your cardio before your resistance training, because you will burn some of that circulating glucose and potentially some of that muscle glycogen, which again, you want to save that for your resistance training. So if anything, resistance train and then do your cardio post-workout, or do your cardio in a completely separate session from your resistance training. So I personally do my cardio sessions fasted because I like to wake up in the mornings and get it out of the way. There's no definitive conclusive data that fasted cardio is superior to fed cardio for fat loss. However, I personally find that fasted cardio just helps me set up my day. I'm in a better mood. My digestion is better. I feel more productive. I feel more accomplished. I work it into my routine. I'm less likely to put it off. I'm less likely to dread it. I find that there's like a host of other benefits to fasted cardio that aren't fat loss itself, because again, there's no conclusive data that supports that fasted cardio would be superior to fed cardio for fat loss. But I do think it has superiority in other domains. For me, that's mindset, that's productivity, that's overall well-being, that's overall headspace, scheduling, like a bunch of non-fat loss related benefits to me for fasted cardio. If my cardio gets high enough to where I have to split it into 2 sessions, then I will do 1 session in the morning fasted and then another session post-workout. So all in all, that's pretty much kind of what I wanted to run through today. Like I said, this was a very short, almost like check-in episode, but I did also want to provide an answer to a question that I get super often that isn't necessarily the type of question that I'm like, okay, we have to go through this specific study to answer it. It's very much, we know that there's something called the crossover effect. The crossover effect is whenever you are gradually increasing your cardio intensity and the majority of the fuel source providing the energy for that cardio switches over from fatty acid contribution to glucose and glycogen contribution. And that crossover effect happens around 65 to 70% of your VO2 max. So when you get around those higher intensity ranges, you're no longer maximizing your fatty acid contribution, and instead you're tapping more into glucose and glycogen. So the biggest things to maximize fatty acid contribution to exercise is low intensity, high duration cardio. So I hope that gives you guys some kind of useful thing that you can use in your day-to-day, in your physique goals, in your fitness journeys. And I hope you guys bear with me as we kind of go through a small little lull in episodes before we get back on our consistency game when the fall semester begins. And I can kind of knock out episodes as I learn them, as I sit in class, take my notes, come home, record an episode, and get all the information directly to you guys as soon as possible. As soon as I learn it, you guys are learning it. That's my promise. But until then, with competing, with finals, with the reverse dieting study, there's going to be a little bit of like a break, a little bit of a season switch until we pick things back up in the fall. So that's what I got for you guys today. I did want to check in. I've missed you guys. 1 week off feels honestly like a year, and I hate it because this podcast is probably my favorite thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And y'all's feedback and y'all's response to it helps fuel the passion that I have for it. So please bear with me. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you guys want to learn about. Let me know if you guys have any specific questions, FAQs, Q&As, all that jazz. Email me at thevaliditypodcast@gmail.com. If you want to join the world's first reverse dieting study, email reversedietstudy@gmail.com and follow along the YouTube and the Instagram for any personal and prep updates. And with that, I will see you guys in the next episode.